Here are a few facts about Greenland. It is the largest island in the world. It is situated between the Arctic Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean. 3/4 of Greenland is above latitude 66, which means it is above the Arctic Circle. 80% of Greenland is covered with a really thick ice sheet. In fact, it is almost 1 to 2 miles deep. We're going to talk about that a little later on in the video. Greenland was inhabited by people that came from Canada about 4,500 years ago, and then the Norsemen came over from Norway in the 10th century. On a world map, Greenland looks gigantic, but it really isn't. It's only 1/4 the size of the United States, as you see here. Present-day population of Greenland is about 54,000, and most people live along the west coast, some on the east coast. Greenland's keeper is Denmark, but during World War II, after the Nazis took over Denmark, the United States stepped in and started to protect Greenland. The Germans started to make weather stations on Greenland, but once the Americans found out, they destroyed all the weather stations. And in fact, they started making runways for our planes to land on. There were no paved roads in Greenland before World War II, but when we started to make some runways, we made some paved roads. But right now, 2019, there's only 80 miles of paved roads in Greenland. The runways were extremely important to the Americans during World War II because that's how we ferried our planes across to London. They went from the United States to Newfoundland to Greenland to Iceland and then to Scotland and England. We ferried about 10,000 bombers and fighters through Greenland, and as you see right here, Bluey West 1 was the most famous airstrip in all of Greenland, and it was in the south part of Greenland. And after World War II, President Truman tried to buy Greenland from Denmark, but they wouldn't sell it, unfortunately. So on our trip to Greenland, we flew from Keflavik, Iceland, to Ilulissat in Greenland. And here is a video that I took of the east coast of Greenland. The time is around 1 o'clock in the morning, and it is still a bit of daylight there. But you are flying to Greenland. It is above the Arctic Circle, most of it is, and you never know the conditions. And that was a big problem when we tried to land. So after flying for about 3.5 hours from Iceland to Ilulissat, we were over Ilulissat, but the pilot said the fog had moved in, and so we started to circle. One of our friends that we met on the trip was a former pilot, and he told us that the runway in Ilulissat was only 2,700 feet long. And after circling for an hour, the pilot said we have to go south to Kangerlussuaq, which had a 9,000 foot runway, and there was no fog. So that's where we flew.
So, of course, we tried to land in Ilulissat, but since it's above the Arctic Circle, it was fogged in. So just like Alaska way back when, we are now in a town that I don't know how to pronounce. It starts with an S, and we'll be here till they were nice enough to get us shuttle buses, but their shuttle buses are really teeny for our flight of like 35 people. So they're making 3 rounds, and we're staying in a hotel, which was very nice of them to do. So we'll see new adventures coming up soon.
Well, there's the airport tower. I don't know what town we're in Greenland, but here's where we landed. This is a military base. These where we stayed. These are all military barracks. look at these cliffs, both sides. And hopefully the Ilulissat, where we're supposed to land, is free of ground fog. I hope. There's this one coming out. Here's our first look at Greenland. We're not in the right town, but that's the way it goes. Well, we had about 2.5 hours sleep last night, and they're supposed to pick us up in a van to get back to the airport. So hopefully that happens. I think they get a lot of snow here. There's one vehicle. And there's another snowcat over there. Okay, so since all these places are pretty close, like Los Angeles is only 6 hours away, the North Pole is 3.5, Copenhagen, Moscow, because you go over the poles. And so here's the plane that we're going to take. We took last night until it got so ground foggish that we had to land here. Air Greenland. This is the longest commercial runway in Greenland at 9,000 feet. And if you think about it, a B-52 only needs 8,000 feet to take off. So this is a really long runway. We were quite impressed by Air Greenland. They flew us here safely, they put us up, and they also fed us breakfast for free. So now it's time to go, hopefully. Well, when we got to Ilulissat, it was still foggy and we circled several times, but the pilot said we're going to go in to try to land. It was only a 2,700 foot runway, so it was pretty short. And here's a picture my wife took of the harbor and the town of Ilulissat right before we landed. Well, we finally made it to Hotel Arctic in Ilulissat, and it's a beautiful hotel. And that's narwhal tusk, and that's my wife, of course. And we were hopefully trying to look for narwhals, but they are a little bit north of us. Came in. This hotel is magnificent. Our room is up there, and it faces these icebergs. Look at the size of these suckers. Look at that. They are gigantic. And an iceberg from this area is the one that the Titanic struck. And we're going downtown and we're going to have some muskox or reindeer steak for lunch. This is the Inuit Cafe, and it was recommended to us from our guide, and wow, he was totally right. What great food they had. I had the muskox with a medley of vegetables, and it was absolutely outstanding. As you can see, here is the plate. And my wife had to die for halibut, very tender. It was just a wonderful place to have lunch. So after lunch, we walked around a little bit more, and we came upon the hills were filled with sled dogs, more sled dogs than people. So after lunch, we went on a walk around Ilulissat, and here's what we found. There is a church, but look at this. Massive, massive icebergs. Look at that. There's a nice boat, but look at how beautiful that iceberg is. So there's an iceberg right out there, and the cool thing about that iceberg is it's right in front of our window. That's our hotel right there, and right up there, the last building up, is our room. So this is the view of our room right out this way. This undoubtedly is the mother of all icebergs. Look at the size of this thing. Holy crow. Look at how huge it is. Wow. I had to put this still shot in the video just to show you that the icebergs absolutely tower over the buildings on the hill. This town's name, Ilulissat, in Greenlandic means iceberg. I guess it lives up to that name. While we were wandering around Ilulissat, my wife took this beautiful reflection shot. Notice the faded number 17 on the top of this building. It was from World War II. Every little village had a number so that when the pilots flew by, they kind of knew where they were because the climate was so dramatic and the fog was so bad they'd always get lost. So here we are on a ship and we are doing a midnight iceberg cruise. Our guide told us a really funny story. Ilulissat gets everything shipped in and they have to have it shipped in before the ice forms. And the ship came in and they forgot to order something. They forgot to order toilet paper. So the town got together and decided to get the toilet paper in, and they had to fly it in by helicopter. So we're just about ready to get up to our several 100-foot tall icebergs. We've seen icebergs in Alaska, but these are just unbelievable in size. That's why I said Greenland is like Alaska on steroids. Two of them. There's two.
And then now you didn't see?
There's so. I'd say this is a photo op. So 3 whales.
Foreground. Today's like perfect right now. Yeah, seriously.
You brought your phone.
Amazing. I wish we could fly a drone.
that straight one.
Oh, that's the one you saw from the hotel.
Yeah. Oh, yes! All right! All right!
I missed it.
Come on, let's see a little tail. This is going to be a perfect backdrop if they do.
Oh,
Oh, come on, stop teasing.
Greg,
You lazy.
yeah, lazy.
This is a reflection of a wickedly cool iceberg. Ready? Here we go. There it is. Then the fog started to roll in.
Every year.
It did,
You'd be dead. Dead meat.
Yeah, we went to Egypt.
Oh, yeah, that's beautiful. Wow.
Close to this one. See if I can get just a touch of both of them in. Look at that.
Oh my God, Greg, look at this one.
Then my wife took this picture at 1 o'clock in the morning. Spectacular. So this is the next day, and the fog came in again, but the whales were so close, we could see them, we could hear them breathe, and we could also smell their breath, and wow, did it smell like fish. They're hunting together. They'll be back up.
C'est ça qui est ça, hein?
Ouais, c'est possible. Il y a plus de la gueule.
Oui, c'est ça qui est ça.
Souffle de la baleine.
Nice. Whoa. Nice. This is good right here.
Oh, si t'as une belle photo, tu me la passes?
Zéro.
Good shot.
Ouais, je vais plonger celle-là. La queue, hop. C'est une humpback. La queue comme ça en forme, c'est...
On dirait qu'il bouge pas rapide, tu vois.
Fabulous.
Ils sont quand même énormes.
Ça rend pas loin.
Wow.
Comme ça, il cherche à manger tout à l'heure. Wow. Et t'en as que t'as dit?
Super. C'est confortable.
Look at that one. Lobtailing. Look at that. They're going after the food right now.
La queue, elle s'entend.
Maybe we'll see a breach. Good pictures. Good pictures. So the fog was just starting to lift when we saw all those seagulls on the iceberg, but then Michelle spotted something that she called a fog bow. And that was a rainbow made of fog. We were leaving for Nuuk that afternoon, and we had to get the fog to lift in order for us to get out of Ilulissat. This is a very good sign. The planes are starting to land here. And that's probably Air Greenland. And this is why it's good, because the fog is starting to lift. And that's a real good sign for us to get to Nuuk. You can see the icebergs behind the town. They're gigantic. So we were able to fly out of Ilulissat, and as you see right now, most of the ground is not covered with snow. That's why most of the people live on the west coast, because the east coast, the glaciers almost go right up to the ocean. So what we're looking at is a glaciated valley right now with huge icebergs. It's about a 45-minute flight from Ilulissat to Nuuk. And as you can see, for about 20-25 miles, the land is not covered with the glacial ice sheet. So that's why most of the people live on the west coast. And the glaciated valleys are absolutely spectacular, and the little white dots, those are really big icebergs. And we are about ready to land in Nuuk, which is the capital, and which has about 5,000 people, which is the largest city in Greenland. So we just landed in Nuuk. There's my wife, but really important also is the shadow of my wife. That means there is no fog and it's sunny outside. And that's a wonderful thing. Nuuk is really, really, really hilly. So after we get to our hotel, we go on our first trip around Nuuk. It was a very good guided tour.
I told that this building was the first from 1728. It has had different functions during...
Oh, it's a walrus.
Oh, it's a woman with a walrus. Okay.
But as I look closer, I think it was a walrus with a polar bear. Yeah. There's the flag of Greenland. It's really weird.
But there are not much buildings with rock.
Another thing that then... Now, let's go back to the missionary. One of the things he had problem with him, they get one boat every year, and a vessel coming up here, a bark coming up.
During the tour, we went to see a museum, just fabulous museum filled with Greenlandic artifacts, like this boat. But the most important and impressive thing we ever saw was this. This is not a doll. This is a preserved 6-month-old baby boy, about 600 years old. This preserved baby boy, along with 4 other preserved women, were found in 1972 in northern Greenland. And the permafrost preserved them perfectly. So after being freaked out a little bit by those mummies, we needed a drink. So we went to a great microbrewery. The name I cannot pronounce, but they had excellent beer. This Arctic Hunter brown ale was my most favorite. We also had burgers, chips, and quesadillas, and they were all quite good. The next day we're going into a gigantic fjord that's near Nuuk. We're going way down to the end, and we're going to fish for cod, and then we are going to have it cooked for us. And just look at the weather as we're going down this fjord. Absolutely magnificent. You don't get too many days like this in Greenland, and so we are going to really enjoy this. This was a huge glaciated valley, and the glaciers fed into this one. Very fast, damn it.
I'll be quite happy to watch. There's a lot of fish in this.
There's a lot of fish? What?
Already?
Shell fishing, very difficult.
I feel like I could do something else while I'm watching TV.
That's it? Okay.
Yeah. We're fishing in about 200 feet of water, and you couldn't even get your lure down and you'd get a strike. So this really wasn't fishing. You're just pulling up the fish every time you put your hook down. So in Greenland, you can't take a bad picture because the scenery is so friggin' spectacular. Look at this. And there is a wiener dog. Long-haired wiener. So after they cooked the fish, they gave us fish, muskox, and lamb. That's one happy table. 3 Australians, 1 Denmark person, 1 from New York City, and the 2 of us from Elmira. This is just a picture of Michelle and myself, just showing how absolutely beautiful it is around this area. So let me explain what just happened. We're on that boat over there near the dock, and we just caught our cod and redfish, and we brought it here. And then we went all the way up to that green building up there, and they cooked it, and we had that. We had ox, we had lamb, we had shrimp, and we had a bunch of scallops. And now we're stuffed, and now we have to go back to Nuuk. And then we're going to do our 10K tomorrow morning. That iceberg. It's what? That is beautiful.
Somebody take a picture, because we didn't get a picture with any iceberg. Catch back in the boat.
Wow.
Det er fantastisk, hvordan de har deres form.
Wow.
Prøv at se, hvordan vandet bare render af den der side, solen skinner på den.
All the way around it.
Yep.
The mountain in the background. It is beautiful.
You want to get one, Jazz?
You guys want a picture?
Yes, I'd love one.
Here, it's beautiful.
That wasn't here when we came down, was it? Just the new arrival. I wasn't here.
Got back to Nuuk from our boating trip and went to Cafe Esmeralda. And as you can see, this is a gigantic shrimp sandwich, and they also had Belgian beer. What a wonderful place to go. Our last day in Nuuk, and we have to only run the 10K because we are flying out and we won't have time to run the half marathon or marathon. And I'm a little worried because we don't know the course and we can't get lost or else we will miss our flight. Okay, so look at Nuuk Marathon, but it's not, we're just running a 10K. And look where the start and finish line is. Oh, it's right there. The start and finish line is right there across from our hotel. And it's a 10K and it feels like 37 degrees outside and the fog is rolling in, which is nothing new here. And over there, that's the best brew pub in Nuuk. They have a great Arctic Hunter Brown. And up the street, up that way, is Cafe Esmeralda, which is the best luncheon place. So everything is super close. So like I said, that's the start and finish line right there. And we have no idea where we're going. So that should be interesting. Needless to say, the course was super hilly. These are some shots Michelle took while she was running. And man, she got lost, and then I got lost. And the worst part was about to come when I went to the finish line. So when I got there, Michelle told me we should have started at 11 o'clock. We started at 10 o'clock. But we still had an absolute wonderful time. And if we would have started at 11, we would have missed our flight. As I said, we made our flight, and here's the last look at our course in Nuuk. It was wickedly hilly. But like I said, we had a great time. And the 3 days we spent in Nuuk, we had absolutely magnificent weather, as you're going to see in a second. Look at this. And this is where the ice sheet isn't. The first 20 to 25 miles on the west coast going inland is free of the ice sheet. And there is a incredibly U-shaped glaciated valley that I couldn't believe how wide it was. So that dumped into the fjord big that you see right below the engine cowling. Now, as we kept on going further east, you noticed there are more and more glaciers. And we are starting to get into the area where it is totally glaciated. And the ice sheet, the average depth of the ice sheet in Greenland is 1 mile thick. The thickest point is almost 2 miles thick. And it weighs so much that it has depressed the ground underneath the ice sheet, so most of it is actually amazingly below enough sea level. 80% of Greenland is covered with this vast ice sheet. Now, it doesn't look like anything can survive down there, but they do have some animals. They've got polar bears, reindeer, muskox, Arctic foxes, they have rabbits, lemmings, and of course, all around the ocean, they have whales and seals. After about an hour of flying time, we have finally reached the east coast of Greenland. Now, look how different this is than the west coast. Notice that the ice sheet and the glaciers almost go right up to the shoreline. So, very few people live on the east coast because there's hardly any land. It is almost all glaciated ice sheet. So after about 3 hours of flying, we are finally back in Iceland, and we are going to land at Keflavik. Notice all the geothermal springs and the Blue Lagoon and all the seismic activity, so you know we are back in Iceland, and what a great trip it was.